Hello everyone, and welcome to our backyard. I am in the back corner of what we call our south garden, and today I want to talk about one plant, and one plant in particular, and that is Firebush. And this plant that you see here in the middle is a hybrid Firebush that I had purchased at Lowe's, and it is close to 7 feet tall, and it is 2 years old. I'm going to bring up the Lowe's tag, and this is, we call it Firebush, but you can see it's also called Hummingbird bush, but this is Hamelia patens, and it flowers all summer long and all fall. It is a fantastic bloomer. I purchased this 2 years ago from Lowe's, and this froze to the ground, and it's grown this much. So it had a root system of 2 years old, which makes a difference because it's taller this year than the previous year. And I can't say enough about this bush. So I'm going to show the back of the tag. And you'll see that it is not cold hardy below zone 9. And it does, it's better to plant it in well-draining soil. It's native, Firebush is native to the American subtropics and down through South America. It is native in Florida. This happens to be a hybrid. It's got a really small leaf structure on it, but it is a prolific flowerer. And the hummingbirds love this, the bees love it, the pollinators, butterflies love Firebush. And I've showed this before on my videos, but once the flowers drop off, it creates a seed, and birds love to eat these seeds. And they'll get a dark black color when they're ripe. So the beauty of Firebush is it brings in lots of insects. This sustains a lot of life and growth in the garden. It's not just a nectar plant. It isn't just, oh, here's a beautiful hummingbird. Oh, come on down. It's okay. She's coming in to have some Firebush. You can come on in. I'm kind of interrupting her here, talking about Firebush. Some people use the leaves, and will take a set of leaves if they've got burns or stings or bites, and roll them up in their hands to get the liquid from the leaves, and use that as medicinal. It has medicinal properties. But I just can't speak highly enough of having this bush in the Texas landscape. Hummingbirds, we even had a hummingbird bush, or this Firebush that hummingbirds will make nests in once it gets larger. I'm going to go over to the other side because I actually have 3 Firebushes back here. So one is planted in the ground there. I've got one next to it that we've planted pretty close to the fence here. And then I bought one at the nursery, and I think that's more of that has the larger leaf, which the larger leaves are the natives. Let me move over there. So on this other side I have Firebush that I purchased at our local nursery, and it has a much larger leaf structure to it, and the red stem. And I think this is the native variety, not the hybridized dwarf variety. And the berries on this are so much bigger than the berries that are on the little firebush here. These berries are small, but it's amazing. All the bugs, all the different types of bugs. You know, a lot of folks down in Florida have this bush, or it's a large shrub, in their orchards and gardens because of all the beneficial insects and predatory insects that it does attract. It's just amazing. I am so sold on having firebush in our landscape. I love these big berries. These, they say, are edible to humans. Not very tasty. I'm certainly not going to eat firebush berries, but I love how they attract and what they attract. And so we have this in the back of our self-pollinator garden. I do want to share that we had a large firebush, and I'm going to pan out. Got a lot of plants in through here. And we had a large firebush in the front part of our garden, and that was a multi-year growth that it had, and it was stunningly large and huge. And it did die off with the 2021 freeze that we had, the really bad freeze. And so we took it out not knowing that it was probably root hardy. And so we had root volunteers come up, and that is the one that I planted on the other side over there. So we probably shouldn't have pulled that up, but I wanted to move this more towards the back of the landscape because it does get large, and I just want to give it room to just completely spread out from our house over to our fence. So for attracting in Texas, especially, you know, along the coast and southern parts, you know, in zone 9, this is going to be root hardy. Now, if it doesn't freeze, this won't freeze back. You can certainly cut it. So I had it cut down to the roots because it did freeze. So I cut it pretty much to the ground, and it has grown this much. It's probably 7.5 feet tall by now because our fence is, 7 feet because our fence is 6.5 feet tall. And so this bush really is a staple for us in our hummingbird and butterfly garden. I highly, highly recommend you consider it if you have a similar type of garden in this climate. Right now it's later in the evening, so I had a better sunlight, and you can't see the pollinators that are usually on it completely all throughout the day. I did have the hummingbird come down and surprise her, but typically this plant is just covered with pollinating insects, and it's wonderful to see what it attracts, because that helps your garden. Not only does it bring in the hummingbirds and insects, but then that in turn brings in your birds, and your birds also help keep pests and everything, especially insects that you don't want in the garden, under control. So I'm curious, how many of you in the area do have firebush in your yard? Aw, she's patiently waiting for me to finish. Let's see if I can get a good close-up of her. When it is hummingbird season, I have hummingbirds in this little section all throughout the day. And you can see, I mean, it's just covered in flowers. So as I was mentioning, how many of you in this area do grow firebush or hummingbird bush, as you saw the tag? And what are your thoughts? It's certainly prolific. And I have decided I do appreciate the hybrid more than the native, just because the hybrid produces more flowers. Although on the native, the flowers are larger and then the berries are larger. So I don't know, I guess it's a trade-off. So for those of you that grow it, I'm curious what your thoughts are. To me now, this is just a staple in our gardens. All right, well, thanks for joining me. One last comment that I do want to make is, I know you've heard me say this on this channel, the difficult summer that Texans have had because of the heat dome that was over Texas for 2 months. And this is a plant that thrived, absolutely thrived in the heat. Some of my plants did not do well in the heat, but this one did. So that's worth noting. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you again.